Just a quick update on the FiiO CP13 stereo Walkman style cassette player. This would have been the best of the 4 models I tested, except that mine is playing too fast, and I thought there was no way to adjust it because unlike all the other models which have a small hole in the back through which you can stick in a screwdriver to adjust the speed, the back on this is completely sealed. But it turns out there is a speed adjustment that you can get to without opening up the case, at least in theory. The problem is it's impossible to get to while you're actually playing a tape, and it's almost impossible to get to even when you're not. If you open up the cassette door and look at just the right angle, you can see it hiding in here and the space where the recording mechanism would go if this was a model that can record, but since it's a playback only version, there is some empty space here, and in the empty space they put the speed adjustment trimmer. Since there's no way to adjust this while you're playing a tape, you'll need to do it blindly. Just turn it a little bit at a time until the speed is correct. It would be a lot easier to get to if you removed the door, but I really rather not do that because both hinges have springs in them, which is going to make it much more challenging to reinstall this. I have 3 tiny screwdrivers here, and unfortunately the only one that's actually short enough to fit underneath the door has a tip that's far too large to turn that adjustment trimmer. I think the solution will be this screwdriver set that uses replaceable bits, but instead of using the entire screwdriver, I'll just need to find a very small flat blade bit and just turn it in my fingers. Well, even with that small of a tool, I'll still need to do it at an angle because there's not enough room against that plastic housing to get to it going in straight. So hopefully this will work. I did manage to get it in that notch in the trimmer, so I'm just going to turn it. It turns out, no pun intended, this little Phillips tip worked best, and my first instinct was incorrect. I thought turning it counterclockwise would slow it down, because that's what you think would be a natural motion for that adjustment, but it's the opposite. You turn it clockwise to slow it down. So it took about a dozen tries, but I think I finally got it right. I'll measure it with this test tape. Can't ask for any better than that. That's almost dead on perfect in speed now, and luckily a cassette player is never going to show you this. Ugh. I also saw some people who bought one of these report that the head alignment is not quite perfect. That's also known as the azimuth. The screw to adjust the azimuth is in this cutout, which is also blocked slightly by the door, but thankfully not nearly as much as the speed adjustment. The screw has some thread locker on it, so the first time you adjust it, it'll be rather stiff, but then it'll get easier to turn. You can see there, adjusting the azimuth. Ideally, you should have a special azimuth test tape to help you make that adjustment, but just like the speed, you can do it by ear by playing a good quality, professionally duplicated cassette and a song on it that has a lot of sustained high-end treble response, and you start playing it and you adjust the azimuth for the brightest, clearest sound, preferably with the left and right channels summed together to mono. The trick to making that adjustment while you're playing a tape is to slide it in underneath the door and slot it in, and now you can play it with the door open, which will give you access to that adjustment. Like that. Ideally, they should have better quality control at the factory, so you wouldn't need to make these adjustments, but at least it's not too difficult to do yourself. And now, let me give you a better sample of what the FiiO CP13 sounds like. In the comments on my first video, a lot of people were asking about support for Chrome tape and Dolby noise reduction. So here I'll play for you some samples from these cassettes, which were all recorded on Chrome tape, so you can decide for yourself how well of a job the FiiO does of reproducing that. And as you'll see on my mixer, the levels on these tapes were pretty conservative as well, they barely even reach 0 dB.
We've put together this demonstration that you can play on any equipment. But to get the most benefit from it, you'll need to switch to your Dolby B setting, position any equalizers or other processors flat or off, and set your tape bias selector to high.
We used to lock our worries outside. Somehow we took it all in stride. But all the walls we built around us couldn't keep love from coming apart. Seems like everywhere we turn now, somehow there's something in our way. We're too busy trying to find a way out, to see all the reasons to stay.
And here's a better size comparison of how the FiiO stacks up against the kind of Walkman-style cassette players that ordinary people actually bought and used back in the day. Not the super slim models that only rich people could afford back then and only really rich people can afford today. It's more squared off at the edges, but in terms of overall dimensions, it's pretty similar. So no matter how you look at it, I think the FiiO CP13 is the best new Walkman-style cassette player you can buy today. Is it as good as the best Walkmans of 30 years ago? No, but with these few tweaks I've been able to do to it, it's certainly a lot closer.